Hi, Maria. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to start off by saying how inspiring it's been to see all of you in your creative processes and seeing what you're working on. As someone who's really just beginning at this, I really have felt so motivated by all of you. So, thank you, because that's hard to feel while we're all at home. So, I wanted to talk about my creative process for my self portrait. As I'm in some of the final steps this week, I've had a lot of new learning, but it's also been really fun to take what I learned through the Still Life project and apply it to some of the parts and aspects of the self portrait I've been working on. So the first inspiration I found was in one of the modules last week. It was some information about Ernst Kirchner, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's a German artist who did used a lot of like bright, vibrant colors and in blocks in abstract paintings, and he made one called Alpine Kitchen that was kind of it used a lot of blurred lines and shapes and curved lines to indicate furniture structures and things like that that I just thought was really interesting. And so I originally felt inspired by that and was going to try something like one of these two thumbnails, which is like just an image of me kind of sitting in my home workspace. And I wasn't really clear about all the details I wanted to include, but I did know I wanted some type of like slouched, exhausted posture to kind of indicate my current feelings about that space. But when I started sketching that, I didn't feel as excited as I was hoping to feel about my self portrait, and so I decided to kind of go with a different idea. And I was looking back through some old photos that I'd taken right around the start of the new year, and I found a picture of myself when I had gone away on a spa retreat. And it was just a beautiful way to start the year. I felt so relaxed, and I remember really just in the moment that I was in wanting to capture that and taking a picture, which I don't often take pictures of myself. And so I decided to use that picture as inspiration. I'm wearing the robe that was super cozy, and I actually ended up buying and bringing home with me because I was loving it so much. And so this photo just kind of reminds me of some really positive, uplifting feelings and joy. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of try and be mindful of my skin tone in real life and kind of balance that with using a photo because I'm not the most confident artist. And so what I decided to do is, just like I did for the still life process, I printed kind of a grayscale version of that picture. And then I divided it up into a grid, which just helped me kind of make sure that different facial features were positioned properly, because if you take a look at my thumbnails from that, I'm not so good at just freehanding that. So adding a grid was just kind of helpful in, me forming my face properly. And then I realized that the acrylic would cover it up as I added my layers of paint. And so once I decided I wanted to do a version of that picture, I started playing around with color mixing for skin tones. And here's some of what I came up with. I noticed I have like kind of a pink tone in my skin, so I used really just burnt umber and white and a little bit of crimson, and I think it's alizarin crimson that I have, and then try to just create different shades and tones of that like pinkish color. And then I also really liked, there was some activities I remember doing around mixing. I have Payne's Gray and Phthalo Green that I mixed together to kind of make these like grayish turquoise colors. So I decided I was going to use those to do my underpainting this time. Last time I used just a gray that I mixed. So I'm curious how it will turn out with this different color in the background. And so I kind of played around a little bit with like mixing those two colors or overlapping them to see how it might turn out. And then I also had some ideas about making the background water related, and so I started kind of just playing with a few other greens and different shades and mixes to see what I came up with. But in between trying those things out and then doing some more of the readings from this week, I was really happy to find the suggestions about wet in wet technique on page 140 and 141. And I actually kind of changed my decision about what I was going to do in the background of my portrait based on what I read. And I decided I was actually going to try to do some salt effects mentioned on page 144. Just got really curious about what that might look like. And I really started to feel a theme of water in my creative process, and I think some of that stems from just the colors. I'm naturally drawn to those teals and blues. Show up a lot in my household and the things that I buy. But on top of that, I'm really missing the time that I usually spend close to water around this time of year, and especially camping trips with my family up to rivers and lakes in the Sierra Nevadas. And so I think those things combined encouraged me to try a different type of background. So I ended up blocking in some of those teals, and then using a wet in wet approach, and then adding some flaked salt on top to kind of give it a textured bubble. It kind of looks bubbly in the background. And then after that, I went in and added my underpainting with the green and Payne's Gray mixture. And so this is what I have so far. I'm still not completely pleased with the proportions of my eyes and a few details on my face. I really am lacking confidence there, but I'm happy with how it turned out. I really like the background, and I'm looking forward to being able to paint in the details of my hair and things like that now that I have that in place in the back. I'm happy with how kind of the shading and mixing of colors here and blending went. But I also realize that, when I'm painting fabric, I have a lot of harder lines, that my plan in adding the next layer will be to kind of blend those a little bit more evenly to have it be not so abrupt of transitions, and really help it make it feel like fabric more than it does now. So, I'm happy with how it's going so far, and I was inspired by a classmate. I can't remember who the classmate was right now, but someone had taped off their portrait like this, so I did the same thing so that I have some space to mount it or frame it if I decide to. So this is what it is so far, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys once it's finished.